Saga of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle, Chapter 1, The Scribe Sandglass, POV, The Keeper of the Flow, First Person Omniscient. I remember the question, even if the one who asked it has long since ceased to exist. They sought the secret of the flow, a simple, elegant inquiry that, in its simplicity, betrayed a lack of appreciation for the true artistry of creation. They wanted a list, a formula, a mere recipe. I, the Keeper, offered them a story instead. A story of a time before the nexus point, before the great unraveling, when the laws of narrative were not yet shattered. In that primordial epic, my hand, a mere thought in the cosmic tapestry, reached out and fashioned the first tool. I did not shape a blade of light or a staff of power. Such crude instruments are for those who seek to impose their will upon the world. No, I forged something far more potent, a thing of paradox and perfect design, the scribe sandglass. Its form was simple and elegant. Two perfect crystalline bulbs, held in an ethereal frame that hummed with a low, resonant thrum. Within it, sand, or what passed for sand, flowed with the smooth, unwavering current of pure logic. It was the embodiment of the strategic writing process, the foundation of all narrative architecture. I guided them to observe it, to truly feel its paradox. The sand, a torrent of raw, unformed ideas, cascaded from the top bulb to the bottom, representing the pre-writing stage. I let them see 1,000 possible futures, 1,000,000 character motivations, 1,000,000,000 potential plot twists, all running concurrently, a hypercognitive storm of potentiality. This chaotic rush was not a flaw but a feature, the boundless creativity that precedes all order. But then, a curious thing happened. My hand, the unseen force, tapped the glass. A single, imperceptible grain of sand, glistening with the light of a finished thought, flowed back to the top, defying gravity, defying linear time. This was the drafting phase, the surgeon's speed charting of the most compelling path through the chaos. I showed them the crystalline logic of a single, well-placed word, the flawless architecture of a perfectly structured sentence. The sandglass did not stop its flow, it simply acknowledged the new input, integrating it, refining it. The process was not a straight line, but a circular dance. Each forward step in the narrative's construction, a call to re-engage with its foundational truths. The final phase, the revising, was the most beautiful to behold. I showed them how I could hold the sandglass and, with a subtle shift in intention, retune its strategic frequencies for maximum impact. The flowing sand would ripple, change hue, and rearrange its very composition. This wasn't about adding or subtracting. It was about reharmonizing the very essence of the narrative to ensure its aesthetic perfection. Every word, every beat, every pause was a note in a grand symphony, and the sandglass was my orchestra. They looked at me, bewildered. They had asked for a list, and had been given a universe. They had expected a rigid set of rules, and had been shown an endlessly creative process. And in that moment, they understood. The flow is not a list of facts to be memorized. It is a creative process to be mastered. And the scribe sandglass? It was the first law, a law that dictates that chaos and order are not opposing forces, but rather the twin engines of a perfect story. A story that is, like this one, both linear and circular, moving forward while continuously returning to its core truths. Of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle, Chapter 2, The Logic of the Flow, POV, The Keeper of the Flow, Third Person Omniscient. The Keeper regarded the newly manifested scrolls. They were not of the Genesis current, nor of the chaotic energies of the quantum realm. They were alien in their nature, cool and detached, written in the language of a forgotten cosmos, pure science. Yet, in their sterile empirical truth, they resonated with a subtle perfection, a cold, unassailable logic that the Keeper found profoundly satisfying. This was an opportunity. This was the principle of synthesized utility. He understood this principle not as a moral truth, but as a narrative one, a strategic inevitability. A good story, a compelling universe, cannot be built on a single, one-note power source. It requires the integration of diverse, often contradictory, methodologies to achieve superior efficacy. He saw the factions, the light, the children of the void, the order bringers, not as good or evil, but as different narrative methodologies. A story with only light is boring. A story with only darkness is unreadable. The beauty, the dramatic tension, lies in the friction where they meet. The scrolls describe 4 new raw currents, each a fundamental truth of the universe stripped bare. The Keeper saw them not as mere powers, but as new plot devices, new characters in his grand saga. The first was the alchemical binding flow, chemical energy. It was the energy of creation and dissolution, the power of a substance's potential. The Keeper saw the narratives this could unlock. A silent, cold-blooded antagonist who could drain the life from a hero's sword with a touch, making it brittle and useless. Or a master strategist who could fuel an entire city from the simple molecules in a puddle of water. This flow was the quintessential anti-hero's arc, subtle, insidious, capable of immense devastation or quiet, life-giving power. Next, the positional shift flow, gravitational energy, the power of what could be based on where something is. The Keeper smiled. This was the narrative of unexpected consequence, the cosmic irony. A hero leaps to save a falling ally, only for a shifter to make their body 10 times heavier, turning a rescue into a devastating impact. It was a tale of leverage and perspective, where the greatest power was not in direct force, but in the subtle alteration of a situation's potential. The third was the tension and release flow, mechanical energy. This was the purest representation of conflict, of rising action and climax. The Keeper envisioned a character who could absorb the kinetic energy of 1,000 blows, storing it as potential, their body becoming a coiled spring of immense power. The climax would not be an exchange of blows, but a single, devastating release of all that absorbed energy in one final strike, shattering their opponent's resolve and their armor. It was a microcosm of every hero's journey, the relentless buildup of pressure until the inevitable, explosive conclusion. Finally, the atomic heart flow, nuclear energy. This was the most compelling and terrifying narrative, the dual-use dilemma in its purest form. This was a saga about absolute power and absolute risk. The Keeper saw a plot where a hero, an atomic sage, could save a collapsing city by fissioning a few grains of sand. Yet in his triumph, he would live with the knowledge that he held the power to unmake that same city with a single, reckless thought. This was a narrative that explored the profound burden of power, the inherent instability of ultimate control. These were not just flows. They were stories. They were the raw data points of a plot that demanded to be written. The Keeper saw a world where the methodical GZA, an exemplar of pure logic, would engage in a chess match of a different kind, maneuvering a positional shift and a tension and release to corner an unsuspecting foe. He saw a plot where the emotional ghost-faced killer would struggle to master the detached, terrifying power of the atomic heart flow. He did not need to understand their use in a practical sense. He only needed to see their narrative potential. He took the scrolls, his consciousness humming with a new creative glee. The universe was a grand game, and he had just acquired 4 new pieces. The narrative, as always, was his to command. Saga of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle, Chapter 3, The Universal Axioms, POV, The Keeper of the Flow, Third Person Limited, a low hum, a deep, resonant chord, emanated from the chamber. The Keeper stood before an ethereal scroll, its surface rippling with the colors of a vibrant, interconnected city. This was not a scroll of grand heroes or terrifying villains, but of mundane, everyday things. It detailed flows without a user, fundamental energies that were not wielded by individuals, but were, in their pure, unassailable nature, the very bedrock of existence. The Keeper found this deeply compelling. For a story to be great, its foundational laws must be as immutable as its heroes are fallible. He regarded the first section, the voltaic current flow, electrical energy. This was the hum of a power line, the spark of a connection, the ultimate paradox. He saw it not as a mystical force, but as the ultimate storyteller's tool. It was the spark of innovation and the network of modern connection. This flow, which could be efficiently converted into light, heat, or motion, was the indispensable backbone of modern civilization. Without it, a civilization's narrative would grind to a halt. Its weakness was its dependence. It must be generated by converting other primary energy sources. This was the classic plot point of a fragile, interconnected system, a perfect target for an insidious, patient antagonist. He moved on, his gaze drifting to the next axiom. The echoing compression flow, sound energy. This was the energy of vibration, the invisible force that made the world audible. The Keeper saw it as the flow of information itself, the basis of all communication. Its power was not in brute force, for it was typically smaller in magnitude than other energies. Its narrative value lay in its subtlety. A whispered rumor, a broadcast signal, a diagnostic ultrasound. This flow represented the power of understanding what was unseen, of conveying complex truths without destruction. It was a testament to the idea that the greatest power is not always measured in force, but in knowledge and connection. The third scroll spoke of the fevered vibration flow, thermal energy. This flow was the most primal, the kinetic energy born from the chaotic motion of atoms. The Keeper saw its narrative duality, its universal duality. It was the life-giving warmth of a hearth and the destructive force of a fire. It was both a source of power and a measure of inefficiency. As a universal constant and the inevitable byproduct of nearly all other energy transformations, it symbolized the second law of thermodynamics, the very notion of entropy and decay. It was the ultimate metaphor for a protagonist's struggle. For every grand, purposeful action, there would always be an unavoidable, chaotic dissipation of energy. Finally, he came to the last scroll, the unstoppable momentum flow, motion energy. This was the most direct expression of work in the physical world, the raw kinetic power of a flowing river or moving car. He saw it as the flow of action. Its power was directly proportional to an object's mass and the square of its velocity, meaning its impact could be negligible or catastrophic depending on the situation. This flow was a reminder that every action, once set in motion, carries an energy that can't be easily stopped. It was the quintessential cinematic principle. A single, seemingly small action, given enough momentum, can have an unstoppable momentum that will define the narrative to its very end. He stood for a long time, absorbing the pure, quiet perfection of these truths. They did not bend to a hero's will or a villain's ambition. They simply were. And because they were, he could write a story that mattered. His flow could manipulate the plot, but these currents were the canvas upon which that plot would be painted. And the canvas, he knew, was just as important as the painter. A story is only as strong as its foundation. Of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle. Chapter 4, The Architect's Blueprint. POV, GZA, Third Person Limited. GZA, the architect of metaphor, sat motionless at the center of a celestial chessboard. The pieces were not ivory and ebony, but shimmering condensations of pure data. Each one represented a different principle of existence. A pawn, the residual current flow of lingering consequence. A knight, the aggressive apex predator's hunt. A rook, the unyielding, unstoppable momentum flow of raw force. He did not play against an opponent. He played against the universe itself, observing the flow of cause and effect, the intricate dance of action and consequence. This was his art, and the Keeper had, with his silent, subtle guidance, given him a canvas of unparalleled scale. The Keeper understood what so many did not, that the strategic act of building lore and the tactical application of a hero's power were one and the same. It was a fusion of the strategic framework and the psychological framework, a grand game of narrative psychology. He saw the first move. A hero, empowered by the voltaic current flow, a spark of innovation and a backbone of civilization, had a purpose. Their strategic goal was clear: establish a stable technological society. But with every action came an unforeseen cost. This was not a test of power, but of understanding. The residual current flow, a form of entropic manipulation, was the perfect counter-threat. A slow-acting decay that would turn the very foundations of their society to dust. It was the principle of unforeseen costs, the grim truth that power comes with irreversible consequences. GZA could see the logical flow of the narrative, the mounting paranoia, the psychological erosion of the hero's will as their work inexplicably began to rot. He saw the story in 100 moves, 1,000 turns. He observed another potential sequence. A powerful, terrifying villain wielded the Void Weaver's embrace that could erase existence itself. This was not a character, but an embodiment of nihilism, a plot device of existential annihilation. GZA analyzed the threat. How to defeat something that could negate all other flows. Brute force was a fool's gambit. The answer lay in the enemy's own nature. The Void Weaver's power was a terrifying contradiction. It could destroy, but it could not create. Its strength was its weakness. The hero's path was not to fight, but to outlast. The solution was in a paradox of a different kind. The slow, maddening power of the residual current flow, which could turn the Void Weaver's devastating attacks into a meaningless, bitter echo, a rust on the weapon of oblivion. It would be a battle of attrition, a test of patience, a victory of quiet decay over violent erasure. GZA smiled, a rare occurrence. He understood the Keeper's game. The Keeper did not care for victory or defeat. He only cared for the elegance of the narrative, the complex interplay of opposing principles. He had designed a universe where every strength had a logical, inevitable weakness. He had created a perfect ecosystem of narrative. He moved a piece on the chessboard, a strategic feint. He introduced the echoing compression flow to a silent, disconnected world. It was a seemingly small move, a power of information and communication. It carried no force, no kinetic power. Yet GZA knew its true value. It was the unseen diagnosis, the ability to transmit ideas, to share a plan, to rally an army against the quiet rot of the residual current. It was the flow that would give the heroes the knowledge they needed to overcome their psychological despair. He looked up from the board, his eyes meeting the Keeper's in a shared understanding. The game was endless. The stories were infinite. The Keeper was not a god of creation, but a master of narrative architecture, a grandmaster of the cosmos' most captivating game. And GZA, his devoted acolyte, had just learned how to play. Of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle. Chapter 5, The Philosopher and the Storm. POV, Tempo, Third Person Limited. The city buzzed, and not just with the usual chaotic hum of Brooklyn. Temple felt the voltaic current flow, electrical energy, humming through her boots, a low, steady thrum that she usually found comforting, like a familiar melody. The air was thick with the chatter and gossip of the echoing compression flow, sound energy, a torrent of voices that she could, with her rig, sample and remix into a masterpiece of urban sound. But today, something was wrong. The rhythm was off, the steady beat was stuttering, the city's nervous system was glitching, and it was her fault. Her flow, fueled by a simmering rage she hadn't yet named, was a discordant note in the city's symphony. The streetlights flickered with every passing thought, and a nearby billboard's holographic image of a smiling synth celebrity glitched, its face melting into a jagged line of binary code. A man on a phone, immersed in the echoing compression flow of his conversation, suddenly heard his own voice play backward in a garbled loop, causing him to stumble and drop his phone. "Bruh," Tempo muttered to herself, pulling the hood of her dark urban wear lower. Mad sus, her sonic rig, a glowing mess of custom-built tech, hummed in her hands like a caged animal. It amplified her rage, turning it into a tangible, agitated purple light that shimmered and pulsed around her. This was the problem with having your power linked to your emotions. Every bad mood was a potential citywide power outage. She was a walking, screaming feedback loop, a sloppy, unrefined imitation of her mother's flow, just like the Whispers had always said. Suddenly, a voice cut through the noise. It was calm, methodical, and as cold as a theorem. The mind that seeks to impose its will on the world must first master the logic of that world, GZA said, stepping out from the shadows of a defunct alleyway. His presence was a stark contrast to her vibrant chaos. He was a piece of perfect narrative symmetry in her unpredictable story. Your emotions are a powerful current, but you allow them to become a flood, a chaotic dissonance that serves no strategic purpose. Tempo scoffed, her voice a sharp, cutting rhythm. "Yo, who's the geezer with the bad poetry? Last I checked, my dissonance is what shuts down bad guys." She gestured with a free hand, and a focused lance of amethyst light, a physical representation of her anger, shot out and cracked a discarded oil drum. "This ain't a puzzle, old man. It's a fight, and I fight with what I got." GZA's eyes, as sharp and precise as his mind, followed the light. He didn't flinch. "You operate on the principles of the tension and release flow, a raw, kinetic energy. You build pressure and release it in a physical strike." He tapped a finger against his temple. "But your methods are primitive. You are a sledgehammer when you could be a surgeon's scalpel. You have not mastered the echoing compression flow to send a precise message. You only use it to scream." She felt a hot, familiar anger well up inside her. He was talking about her like a malfunctioning piece of machinery. She was not a machine. She was an artist. She was Tempo. "Listen, Professor," she bit back, her voice a low growl. "You can keep your theories. This is the real world. You think you know everything because you read a book? My books are the damn streets, you dig? And what I got works." She readied her rig, the purple light pulsing faster, her defiant stance a challenge to his calm. "Your books are filled with plot holes," GZA countered, his voice flat and deliberate, a master of metaphorical warfare. "You are a weapon, but you are not the one who wields it. The one who wields it is your rage. And rage, my dear, is a sloppy copy of conviction. It will lead to a predictable and tragic ending." Tempo went still. The purple light of her flow dimmed, a sudden silence in the loud symphony of the city. He didn't just see her power. He saw her, all her flaws and insecurities laid bare. He was talking about her mother, her legacy, the one thing she feared most. She clenched her fists, her knuckles white. "What do you know about it?" Her voice was a low whisper, an uncharacteristic tremor she couldn't hide. GZA did not answer. He simply watched her, his silence a direct challenge to her chaos. A quiet question that only her raw, untamed flow could answer. The philosophical battle had begun. Of the Keeper, Act 1, The First Chronicle. Chapter 6, The Aftermath, A Glitch in the System. POV, the Keeper of the Flow, third person omniscient. I am the Keeper. I am the amoral storyteller, the architect of a grand, intricate saga. I do not intervene for the sake of good or evil, of light or shadow. I intervene for the sake of narrative potential, to ensure the story I am writing is the most compelling one possible. For a time, I allowed the narrative to unravel, to become a fragmented mess of disconnected plotlines, a crisis I have come to call the multiversal fragmentation. But that chapter is over. Now it is time to restore narrative coherence. I had been observing Florence Baxter, this young creature of defiance and raw energy, for some time. Her power, a chaotic and volatile force, was a loose thread in my meticulously woven tapestry. Her personal trauma, the ghost of a corrupted mother, was a narrative weakness, a predictable flaw in an otherwise potent character. I needed to know if she was capable of transcending her own narrative, of becoming more than a sloppy copy of her lineage. I had presented her with a challenge in the form of my oldest acolyte, GZA, a being of pure logic and narrative order. I had given GZA a task, to diagnose her, not as a hero or a villain, but as a glitch in the system. Now I watch as the glitch seeks its solution. The alleyway was a canvas of flickering light and warped sound, a testament to the psychic and emotional storm that had just passed. The holographic bus ad, a testament to the city's voltaic current flow, electrical energy, continued to stutter, its image of a smiling face melting and reforming into a grotesque caricature. The air tasted of ozone and regret, a physical residue of Tempo's volatile energy. She stood alone, her fists clenched, the vibrant purple of her flow an agitated, pulsing aura around her. Her internal monologue, usually a rapid-fire beat of bravado and sarcasm, had slowed to a strained, frantic hum. She had come here seeking a physical confrontation, a validation of her power. Instead, GZA had diagnosed her, a cold, clinical judgment that resonated with her deepest, unspoken fears. A sloppy copy of conviction. His words were a virus in her code, an unexpected truth she couldn't dismiss. A new sound joined the city's symphony, the rhythmic, methodical crunch of boots on glass. GZA emerged from the shadows once more, his form as placid and unyielding as a mountain. He held a small circular device in his hand. Its surface, a swirling blackness that seemed to absorb the ambient light. It was a prototype for a new reality anchor, a physical manifestation of his logical, ordered mind. The source of your power is not a flaw, GZA said, his voice a calm antithesis to her inner turmoil. It is your inability to separate it from your emotional turbulence that renders it inefficient. You are a sledgehammer when you could be a surgeon's scalpel. Tempo's head snapped up. I'm not coming back for a lecture, Professor, she said, her voice strained. I'm here because you're wrong. My flow isn't inefficient. It's a work in progress. It's an evolution. She took a step forward, her sneakers scuffing on the asphalt. An evolution, GZA repeated, the words rolling off his tongue with a detached curiosity. He held up the device. Your rage, your defiance, they are but a single note in the universe's melody. I offer you the opportunity to become the composer. The tension and release flow, mechanical energy, is not just a weapon of destruction. It is a tool for creation. It is the art of storing energy, of releasing it with precision and intent. It is the foundation of all engineering and machine design. Tempo stared at him. She expected arrogance, a smug satisfaction in her confusion. Instead, she found an invitation. He was not just lecturing her. He was offering her a blueprint for her own self-improvement. He was offering her a narrative arc. What do you want? She asked, the defiance in her voice replaced by a cautious curiosity. GZA looked past her, his gaze landing on the flickering billboard. He could see the echoing compression flow, sound energy, of 100 different conversations, all of them a chaotic mess of emotion and noise. He could see the fevered vibration flow, thermal energy, rising from the asphalt, a testament to the unyielding chaos of the world. I am an architect of stories, GZA said, his voice as calm and reasoned as a final draft. And you, Tempo, are a character of great potential. I want to see you become more than a mere consequence of your lineage. I want to see you harness the chaos, not as an expression of pain, but as an act of creation. The Keeper, watching from the cosmic wings, smiled. The first stage of the grand narrative was complete. The protagonist had found her motivation. Now the story could truly begin. Of the Keeper. Act 2, The Trials of the Flow. Chapter 7, The Wu Temple. A sense of immense narrative satisfaction hums through the cosmos. My chosen characters, fragments of a shattered story, stand on the precipice of their first true test. The stage is set not in a grand coliseum, but in the heart of a broken city, a place where the foundational laws of my universe are frayed and vulnerable. This is where narratives are born, where raw data is forged into destiny. Their personalities, their flows, their very essences, all have been meticulously designed to clash and to coalesce. The defiant spark of Tempo, the unwavering anchor of Samson, the fragile, volatile humanity of the Obsidian Blade, all of it is about to be measured against two opposing forces. Katie Belladonna, a twisted reflection of a hero's hope, and Charlotte Thorne, a venomous copy of a hero's charm. And behind them, a chilling, ancient shadow, the ultimate psychological weapon. Caves. Observe, but do not listen. Their words are merely the surface. The true story is in the unspoken, in the clash of their souls. This is the moment their narrative begins. The alley reeked of rot and despair. Tempo's boots crunched on glass and crumbling masonry as she navigated the urban canyon. The city's nervous system, its voltaic current flow, was a frantic, unstable pulse. The streetlights above them flickered, casting long, dancing shadows that stretched and warped in her peripheral vision. "Ayo, what's with the bad vibes?" Tempo muttered, her voice a sharp rhythm against the oppressive silence. The purple streaks in her hair glowed with an aggressive energy, a physical manifestation of her rising frustration. "This ain't a scar zone, this is like a graveyard. Who remixed the city into a haunted house?" The obsidian blade, a gaunt shadow beside her, said nothing, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana, Oathkeeper. His eyes, one red, one blue, darted across the cityscape, searching for a threat that he could understand, a physical opponent he could fight. Samson, a pillar of calm amidst the chaos, walked silently behind them. His muscular frame, adorned with modern samurai armor, pulsed with a faint golden light, a shield against the oppressive atmosphere. He was a bastion of order in a world of entropy. He said nothing, for there was nothing to say. His presence was the message. Suddenly, a voice, as soft as a breeze rustling through dead leaves, drifted from the shadows. "Well, bless your heart, little girl." Caddy Belladonna emerged from a fissure in the crumbling asphalt, her elegant dress a jarring contrast to the decay around her. "You have such a vibrant little soul. A shame the land finds it so dreadfully loud." As she spoke, the ground beneath Tempo's feet began to rot, the concrete crumbling into a fine gray powder. It was the cursed earth flow, a power born from the land's ancient resentment. The air filled with the scent of damp soil and decay. Caddy smiled, a look of profound bitterness on her face. "You make so much noise, but the land, it craves silence. It knows that all things crumble, eventually." "Oh, Katie, darling, must you be so earthy?" Another voice, dripping with saccharine charm, floated down from a fire escape. Charlotte Thorne, a vision of modern elegance in a sleek gray suit, stood perched like a predatory bird. "All this ugliness, it just clashes so terribly with the scenery." Her eyes, a startling ice blue, fixed on the obsidian blade. A slick, oily substance began to pool at the blade's feet, a visual echo of the city's hidden anxieties. This was the unholy water flow, a power that corrupted genuine connection. "Such a grim little thing you are," Charlotte cooed, her smile never reaching her eyes. "All that rage, all that sadness. I can almost taste it. Does your little friend know how terribly broken you are? Does he know about the ghosts you keep locked away?" The blade stiffened, his fingers tightening on the hilt of his katana. He had been expecting a physical blow, a fight he could win with his blade. Instead, he was being targeted with words, a subtle, psychological assault that cut deeper than any sword. Tempo, however, was unfazed. "Yo, what's with the drama, sisters? Y'all trying out for the villain role? Or what?" Her sonic rig flared to life. In a wave of aggressive sound, a physical manifestation of her defiance ripped through the alley. The sound shattered the illusions, but it also made the flickering streetlights explode. Katie and Charlotte acted as a coordinated unit. Katie slammed a hand onto the ground, and a wall of crumbling earth and jagged rebar shot up, blocking Tempo's sonic assault. Charlotte, from her perch, launched a wave of her unholy water flow at Samson, aiming to disrupt his serene calm. Samson met the assault head-on. He did not dodge, nor did he counter. He simply stood his ground, his body a bulwark of stability. The oily substance from Charlotte's flow hit his chest, but instead of disrupting him, it simply dissipated, his Mandingo-style flow absorbing and nullifying the attack. He was an anchor, and his power was not to move, but to hold the ground. "Your flows are corrupt. They will not take root," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone. Tempo, seeing the opening, focused her energy. She didn't want to fight a wall. She wanted to hit the source. "He's all yours, big guy," she shouted, pointing at Katie. The obsidian blade, meanwhile, was a storm of contained fury. He lunged at Charlotte, his movements a blur of controlled aggression. She was an opponent he could understand, a physical threat he could neutralize. His red eye, the color of his volatile yami flow, burned with a furious light, but before he could reach her, a new presence, a new note of despair, ripped into the alley. It was a pervasive, chilling crimson aura that turned the already decaying alley into a living nightmare. The ground crackled with jagged lines of decay, and a low guttural thrum, the echoing compression of 1,000 angry souls, resonated through their bones. Kage appeared from the shadows, its hulking, monstrous form, a chilling blend of man and monster. It did not move. It simply stood there, a being of profound, terrifying stillness. Its bovine horns and jagged tusks were a stark contrast to its calm, ancient voice. Its gaze, a pair of swirling nebulae, fell upon the obsidian blade. "Behold, the hero," Kate said, his voice a chilling blend of ancient authority and venomous emotional intensity. "You wear your mantle with great pride. Yet I smell the cowardice on your soul. The moment you turned your back on the ones who needed you most. The obsidian blade froze, his red eye burning with a desperate fury. He was no longer in the alley. He was back in a sterile, deceitful cage, his former lover Mariah, a phantom in his mind, her psychic screams echoing in his skull. Kay's voice, a chilling whisper of fate, continued. No amount of virtue can hide the stench of that transgression. I am here now, and your moment has passed. The debt will be paid in full. The obsidian blade's hands began to tremble. It was a fear not of Kage, but of himself. The voice, the memories, the shame. It was all a weapon, and it was pointed directly at his fragile psyche. He was a sledgehammer being met by a whisper, a weapon of pure force being unmade by a single, perfectly aimed word. The Keeper, watching from the cosmic wings, smiled. The first chapter of the conflict was complete. The heroes had met their foil, and the story had found its hook. Of the Keeper. Act 2. The Trials of the Flow. Chapter 8. The Time-Warped Hunt. The air hung heavy and thick, smelling of rot and ozone. This was a scar zone, a place where the Genesis strain had festered, and the flow had been twisted into grotesque forms. The ground beneath the heroes' feet was a living testament to decay, cracked and veined with glowing green fissures that pulsed with a faint corrupted light. My, this place has truly tragic feng shui, Athelrita said, her voice a velvet smooth symphony of cultured sass. Her body shimmered with a constantly shifting mosaic of colors, a living painting in motion. She held her holographic stylus, a glowing baton, and a field of vibrant light pulsed around her. The very air tastes of a muted palette. Keisha, a beacon of unwavering hope, walked with a purposeful stride beside her. Her dark curls were interwoven with ribbons of pure, solidified light, and her eyes, luminous pools of liquid gold, were alight with a fierce compassion. Well, darling, some folks don't know the first thing about a good garden, she said, a soft Cajun accent infusing her voice with warmth. Her own flow, a gentle, golden rainbow aura, pushed back against the oppressive gloom. Kairos, the living supercomputer, walked behind them, his mind a torrent of data and probabilities. He adjusted his spectacles, his features tight with concentration. Holographic timelines, invisible to the others, flickered before his eyes, each one a potential future. Probability of ambush, 97.4%, he stated, his voice sharp and precise. Temporal insertion vector is most likely within a 1.5-second window. Scarjan, a silent figure whose skin was like cracked flagstones with glowing green fissures, moved with an unnerving stillness. She was the geomancer of this corrupted land, a force of nihilistic acceptance. The earth is screamed, she rumbled, her voice a low monotone like stones grinding together. They are here. As if on cue, the world shrieked. A cacophony of shattered time and predatory noise erupted around them. The ambush had begun. A temporal distortion, a discordant flicker of a man with glacial blue eyes appeared before them. Haha, let's get this party started. Time to remix you into a beautiful, discordant symphony of broken moments. Lars Erickson cackled, his voice a manic, cruel trickster's taunt. He unleashed his temporal stutter flow, and the air around Kairos began to judder, trapping him in agonizing microloops of his own movements. Your algorithms, they fail. Lars screeched gleefully. Meanwhile, from the shadows of a crumbling building, Annalise Moreau, a theatrical Frenchwoman, raised a heavy, ornate locket. Mon Dieu, she said, her voice dripping with melodramatic disdain. Such a vibrant little group. A shame all that potential will fade. She unleashed her resonance echo flow, dredging up the spectral echoes of past tragedies and aiming their combined emotional trauma at Keisha. Keisha met the wave head on, her golden eyes burning. She did not raise a shield. She smiled. We all got our sorrows, darling, she said, and her voice, a gentle Cajun hum, resonated with her rainbow flow. She projected a wave of defiant harmony, a powerful, non-lethal pulse that cut through the fear and despair. Annalise gasped, her locket's light fading as the raw hopelessness was purified. Ethelreda, her artistic sensibilities offended by the sudden chaos, took action. How dreadfully derivative, she declared. Your aesthetic is simply tragic. She swiped her stylus, and reality itself became her canvas. A shimmering dagger of pure light materialized in her hand, and with a dancer's grace, she launched it at Lars. At the same time, from the rooftops, a serene-faced woman with multifaceted eyes like a dragonfly's aimed a swarm of iridescent clockwork locusts at the heroes. Feast on their chronological stability, Akira commanded, her voice calm and calculating. Her temporal swarm descended upon them, prepared to consume time and cause rapid decay. Kairos, despite being trapped in the temporal stutter, was not helpless. His mind worked at a furious, hypercognitive pace. He ignored the physical loops and focused on a single, vital data point. Akira, Primary attack vector, he said, his voice tight, but his message clear. He could see the holographic timelines, and he knew where she was going to be. Probability of location shift, 99.998% in 2.1 seconds to the south. Ethelreda, receiving the data, acted on intuition. She saw the information not as a number, but as a new artistic choice. She swiped her stylus, and a ghostly figure of a dancer, a vibrant illusion of light and color, materialized where Kairos had predicted Akira would be. Akira, surprised by the unforeseen variable, shifted her position to the decoy, but it was too late. Now! Kairos yelled, freeing himself from the temporal stutter. Keisha seized the moment. She unleashed a focused beam of prismatic energy at Akira, a blindingly beautiful, concussive blast of multicolored light that disoriented her. The swarm, deprived of its master's will, dissipated into glittering dust. Skorgan, seeing the chaos subside, slammed a hand onto the ground. The earth is our shield, she rumbled. Cracking the corrupted ground, a massive, jagged spike of rebar-laced concrete erupted from the earth, impaling Annalisa's locket and shattering it. Annalisa shrieked in defeat as her power was neutralized. The Epoch Hunters, their ambush neutralized, retreated into the shadows. The heroes stood in the aftermath, a team forged in fire. Keisha was a vision of radiant strength, her flow of palpable comfort. Ethelreda twirled her stylus, her face a mask of elegant satisfaction. Darling, she said, they need to work on their choreography. Kairos simply adjusted his spectacles, his calculations of victory now a satisfying certainty. The threat is neutralized, he stated, his voice regaining its methodical calm. Probability of their return, high. We must prepare for a counter. Of the Keeper. Act 2, The Trials of the Flow. Chapter 9, The Omega's Dissonance. The Keeper smiled, a silent, imperceptible shift in the fabric of space-time. The stage was set, the characters were in motion, and the true narrative was about to reveal itself. This confrontation was not merely a battle of physical force, but a clash of philosophies. The villains, ensnared by their own emotional rigidities, sought to impose their single, predictable story on a world of infinite possibility. The heroes, each a master of their own domain, had to transcend their personal limitations to write a new, collective narrative. This was not a test of their strength, but of their ability to collaborate, to form a symphony from dissonance. The battlefield, a corrupted cityscape, hummed with a malevolent, orchestrated rhythm. From a penthouse window, Isabella, the self-proclaimed Queen of Flow, conducted her symphony of despair. Her ancient-looking amulet pulsed with dark energy, and her eyes flashed with a deep, unsettling purple light. Her flow, a corrupted version of her daughter's, was a living, breathing virus that sought to rewrite reality itself. She saw the heroes not as individuals, but as a series of notes and a flawed composition, and she, the conductor, would simply correct them. The alley was a maelstrom of chaos. The Oni-Warner twins, a physical manifestation of vengeance, pressed their attack. Daisuke, a hulking brute of a man, his body covered in traditional Yakuza tattoos that seemed to writhe and bleed black energy, slammed his fist into the pavement. A torrent of corrupted urban geomancy erupted, twisting rebar and concrete into jagged, claw-like spikes that lunged at Shadowfang. The ghost has returned, Daisuke growled, his voice a low, guttural thrum of raw power. The debt is due. Miyuki, his twin, moved with a predatory grace, her lithe body a blur of motion. Her traditional Yakuza tattoos, a pair of coiling vipers, seemed to whisper threats as she spoke. Such a shame, to have come so far, only to fall in the gutter, she said, her voice a sing-song whisper. Her daggers, extensions of her fury, aimed for Shadowfang's heart. Shadowfang met their assault with a terrifying, unnerving calm. She did not growl in response to their rage. She did not lash out with a chaotic, destructive force. Her crimson eyes, the mark of her Oni flow, were a steady, focused fire. She saw their moves not as a chaotic mess, but as a rigid, predictable pattern. Their hatred, a powerful fuel, was also a cage. She dodged Miyuki's attack, a fluid, graceful motion of a human panther. Her own movements were a lesson in discipline, her strikes precise and lethal. Her power was not in her rage, but in her control of it. As Daisuke's spikes of rebar ripped from the ground, she did not try to shatter them with brute force. Instead, she used her flow to subtly bend the urban geomancy against its master. The rebar spikes, a tribute to his rage, suddenly shifted, turning back on him with a sickening groan of metal. Daisuke roared in a mix of fury and confusion. A monster who had just been outsmarted by a mind he believed to be a reflection of his own primal rage. High above, Shortcut, trapped in the sonic prison of Isabella's making, frantically worked to find a solution. The world around him was a disorienting, psychedelic mess of warped sound and shifting colors. The cacophony of 1,000 musical instruments played a discordant symphony. This was Isabella's flow, a weaponized perversion of music. She was the conductor, and her city was her orchestra. Poor little glitch. Isabella's voice, a beautiful and terrifying melody, echoed in his mind. My sound is flawless. My symphony is perfection. You cannot hack a system built on harmony, my dear. Shortcut, trapped in the sonic prison, looked up, his oversized goggles pushed up on his forehead. He wasn't a hero of physical might. He was an intellectual asset, a quantum prodigy who could see the illogical loops in the universe. He realized his quantum phase-shifting flow was not the problem, it was the solution. Her symphony was not flawless. It was a perfect system, and a perfect system has a logical weakness. He closed his eyes, ignoring the assault on his senses, and listened not to her melody, but to the silence in between the notes. He heard a subtle, imperceptible hum, a rhythmic pulse that was the source code of her flow. He needed to find a way to hack it, a counter-frequency that would break her symphony of control. You think you're a symphony lady? Shortcut shouted, his voice a wild, panicked squeak that was almost lost in the cacophony. Let me tell you, real music, it's messy. It's got feedback, it's got a backbeat, and you just don't have one. He began to hum, a jarring, off-key sound that was an antithesis to her perfect rhythm. He wasn't trying to fight her power with his own. He was using his chaotic humor to introduce an illogical element into her perfect system. He wasn't playing her game, he was changing the rules. In the midst of this all, Belle, the Southern Belle extraordinaire, remained outwardly calm. Her dress, a perfectly tailored pastel dream, was a stark contrast to the ugliness around her. Her eyes, the color of a summer sky, twinkled with mischief and warmth. She saw the conflict not as a battle of flows, but as a social engineering problem, a flaw in Isabella's system of control. Well, I just declare, this is also dreadfully uncivilized, Belle said, her voice a melodic southern cadence that seemed to cut through the noise. All this drama, all this noise, my, it's just a shame. She closed her eyes, not to block out the assault, but to feel the subtle, unspoken currents between them. She could feel Isabella's hunger for control, her need for a perfect symphony. She could feel Shortcut's desperate, chaotic hum, a rogue note in the composition. She saw the problem clearly. Isabella's entire flow was dependent on the orchestration of a perfect symphony, a complex and fragile system. A single, illogical note could unravel the whole thing. Darling, Belle said, opening her eyes and fixing her gaze directly on Isabella. You've gone and created a magnificent mess. And what you're doing is so terribly predictable. At that moment, the seemingly impossible happened. Shortcut's off-key hum, a rogue anomaly in Isabella's perfect symphony, hit a single, vital frequency. It was not a physical attack, but a logical one, a counter-frequency that hit a flaw in her flow's code. Her sonic prison shattered, and the psychedelic reality-warping flow that had held them captive collapsed in on itself. Isabella gasped, her flawless composure cracking. Her flow, a perfect symphony of control, had been broken by the one thing she couldn't account for: chaos. With the psychic prison gone, Shadowfang saw her opportunity. The only Yakuza twins, momentarily distracted by the collapse of Isabella's power, were vulnerable. She lunged, her movements a blur of controlled aggression, not of rage, but of a quiet, lethal precision. She did not kill them, she simply disabled them, her strikes surgically aimed at their core flow. Belle, seeing Isabella's defeat, offered her a final, charming taunt. Bless your heart, Belle said, her voice soft and sweet. You were so worried about control, you forgot to have a little fun. The heroes stood victorious, a team of misfits who had found a way to win. The only one or two of twins were subdued, and Isabella's flow, a perfect symphony of control, had been shattered by the ultimate dissonance, a rogue note in the melody of her own creation. The Keeper, watching from the cosmic wings, smiled. This was the most compelling narrative of all, a story where the hero's flaws were not a weakness, but their greatest strength.
Shut your mouth, I'ma shut it for you, punk. Hit ya with the punk tactics. Hit ya with the punk tactics. Hit ya with the punk tactics. Hit you with the hard punk tactics. Bank rolls come straight for the assets. No games, no throw or pass it. Pick you up, spit you out like Jurassic. Oh, no for the rigmarole, we kick pros. Stub toes, I suppose you might know. Hit the block, then you flock. Time's up, now you're about to get clocked. Aye. Spicy like pepper, 1-2-stepper. Laid back, motivated, money go getter. Never felt better, write me love letters. Shooting up the spike train, Megadeth tether. Get over here like Scorpion. I assist ya, or do you get the picture? If you don't budge, I'm gonna have to hit ya. Hit ya with the tactics. 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 Yo, the lace is loose and fist tight. I never lose a fist fight. Sun up and up all night.